Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, August 15th, 2025. This week, the rise and fall of a Wisconsin hitwoman, why you should think twice before getting into an Uber, and a dog in Alabama has developed a taste for human remains. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Yes, super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner on.
That James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter James Renner, who's been on the podcast a long time, friend of mine.
And we're back with more true crime this week with me, your host, James Renner. There's the James Renner bell. I got it back. I kind of cut it off there. Anyways, welcome back. It's me. Hey, tune in every Friday morning for true crime news that you might have missed during the week. You don't have to read the news. It's depressing. Just come here once a week. I'll fill you in on all the true crime stuff that you might have missed, including pop culture and books and recommendations, things like that. And at the top of the show, there's a couple things I want to talk about this week. First of all, if you're following the disappearance of Aimee Bradley, the Amy Lynn Bradley documentary that came out on Netflix has gotten really big. Everybody's into this case again of this woman who went missing off a cruise ship in 1998. I've got a book coming out, but not until next summer. In the meantime, you should be reading these articles by Katie Forrester in the U.S. Sun. She's covered the case more than any other journalist in the recent weeks, and she has the best news for it. So, in fact, I think there's an article that's coming out today. So go check it out, Katie Forrester at the U.S. Sun. Also, CrimeCon Denver's coming up in just a couple weeks, and I'll be there. You should come out, say hi, get a signed book, hang out, drink some bourbon or whatever. And if you haven't bought tickets yet, you can use my code RENNER, R-E-N-N-E-R, for a sweet discount. You're welcome. And as always, I want to thank my buddy Walter for manning the camera. Walter's just back from promoting his new podcast with Taylor Swift. I hear it's doing pretty good. All right, let's get to the top stories. That's what you're here for. Here's a plot for a new Netflix movie. A seemingly normal, middle-aged woman from Wisconsin gets pulled into an international assassination plot and is finally captured after 5 years on the run. But this story is entirely true. 44-year-old Aimee Betro of West Allis, Wisconsin, was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder in England this week, according to CNN. Here's what we know so far. It all began in 2018 when Aimee met a man named Mohammed Nazir on a dating app and swiped right. They hit it off, and for Christmas, Aimee flew to Derbyshire, England, to meet Nazir in person. Around that same time, Nazir and his father, Mohammed Aslam, visited a clothing store in Birmingham and got into some sort of heated argument with the store's owner, a guy named Aslat Mahmoud. Whatever happened, Nazir and Aslam vowed revenge. They promised to kill Aslat himself or a member of his family, but they needed a good hitman first. And that's when Aimee stepped up. In August of 2019, Aimee returned to the UK. She bought a niqab, which she used to disguise her identity, and she purchased a Mercedes that couldn't be traced back to Nazir. Aimee then drove to Aslat's house and waited outside. And when Aslat's son arrived, Aimee exited her vehicle, pointed a gun at him, and fired. But as luck would have it, her gun jammed, and the son was able to escape. She then fled the scene, abandoned the Mercedes, and took a cab back to Aslat's house, then fired 3 bullets through his windows before getting back into the taxi and making a getaway. Nobody was injured in that shooting. When police recovered the Mercedes, they found a black glove inside, and a DNA test led them directly to Aimee. By then, Aimee had returned to the United States, but she was kind of feeling the heat, so she fled to Armenia, as you do, where she hid out until police finally tracked her down last July. Nazir and his father were also arrested and have since been convicted and sent to prison for a very long time. Aimee will be sentenced for the crimes this week. All they need to do now is cast Toni Collette, and I'm there. I'm going to watch that thing. The New York Times released a bombshell report last week that revealed the scale of sexual assaults occurring inside Uber cars. And the numbers are staggering. Uber receives a report of sexual assault or sexual misconduct about every 8 minutes on average. From 2017 to 2022, Uber logged 400,181 reports of sexual assault or misconduct. The vast majority, of course, are men, the perpetrators. Sometimes it's the driver attacking his passenger. Sometimes it's a male passenger attacking a female driver. Like any good capitalist company, Uber did extensive research to figure out if it could fix this problem and whether it might be cost-effective to do so. What they found was that a large number of the attacks could actually be predicted using data. They learned that sexual assaults and misconduct typically happen late at night and on the weekend and involve pickups originating near a bar. In response, Uber updated their apps with a range of new safety features, including GPS tracking, audio recording, and an emergency button that could be used to call 911. Now, all of that was in place, though, in December 2023, when a woman in Houston used Uber to pick her up at her apartment at 8:53 p.m., requesting to be dropped off at a house 22 minutes away. But Uber's tracking system noticed that the driver had diverged from the route. Uber sent an automated notification to check on her, but the woman didn't respond, and nothing was done. Her trip remained active until the driver marked it complete at 2 a.m. When the car stopped near Motel 6 that night, it did send another notification. Again, the woman did not respond. The woman contacted Uber at 5:50 a.m. the next morning to report that she'd been raped by the driver. She said she was intoxicated when he picked her up, and she awoke in the motel after the attack. At that time, the driver fled. When Uber investigated, they discovered that this driver had already been reported twice for sexual misconduct. Now, the New York Times report shows that Uber, they know how to fix a lot of these problems. For one, they could install cheap cameras inside their vehicles that would record every drive. Except they also know that if they do this, they have to start treating their drivers like employees and pay them and provide benefits, which they really don't want to do. So, they're not requiring cameras right now. They could also match female passengers with female drivers, except they don't have enough female drivers to make that work well. Why? Because their female drivers keep getting attacked by horny male riders. Perhaps aware of the upcoming article in the Times, Uber announced on July 23rd that they would start testing women matching ride options in LA, San Francisco, and Detroit to see if it's feasible. In the meantime, if Uber needs a new spokesperson, I hear Bill Cosby's looking for work these days. It's been a wild week for the Democrats' candidate for South Carolina governor, William McLeod. On Monday, McLeod formally announced his candidacy, but within 24 hours, members of his own party were calling for him to withdraw. Why? Because on Tuesday, video footage of his recent arrest for disorderly conduct surfaced online, and it's not good. It's like Mel Gibson level not good. When Charleston police stopped McLeod one night in May, McLeod was belligerent and appeared to be under the influence of a stimulant narcotic. I wonder which one that could be. At the time, he was also wearing just underwear and shoes and yelling at the top of his lungs. During the arrest, he refused to give police his real name, instead telling them that his name was God, or maybe Superman. But the most damaging part of the video is when he uses the N-word a couple of times, which is a couple of times too many. When he arrived at the jail, McLeod refused to get out and told the police that he would just sleep in the back seat. For now, McLeod has refused to step down. Personally, I think he's set his sights a little too low. With a criminal record, a history of racism, and incoherent rambling, he'd make a much better candidate for president. And those are the top stories this week. I will be back after the break with lots of cold case updates. You're going to hear some nutty news about this dog that keeps finding human remains. All this and more. I'll be back in 2 and 2.
Please hang up and try again.
And we're back with more True Crime This Week, brought to you by Duff Beer. Can't get enough of that wonderful Duff. Police in Australia have solved a 30-year-old cold case murder, according to MSN. In March 1994, someone beat and raped 24-year-old Samantha Mizzi and left her for dead in a bush in Melbourne. A passerby found her a short time later, but Samantha died at the hospital the next morning. Yesterday, police arrested a 67-year-old man and charged him with her murder and rape. Now, the man can't be named due to Australia's suppression laws, but we do know a few details about him, such as the fact that he was convicted in 1998 for abducting a 10-year-old girl. Mizzy's children, now adults, were in court to see him be arraigned. He will remain in custody until his next hearing in December. No word yet on how they caught him after all these years, but my money is on genetic genealogy. I'm guessing that has something to do with it. Paulina Maya of Jefferson County, Alabama, was getting ready for work last Friday when her 2-year-old German Shepherd, Chicherin, showed up in her front yard gnawing on a human bone. Maya's only thought was, oh no, not again. This is the 4th time Chicherin has returned home with a human bone in its mouth, according to AL.com, that's Alabama.com. Last August, the dog was found playing with a human skull. A couple months later, it brought home a human tibia. Police were called each time and tests were done that confirmed all the pieces belonged to one individual who appears to have been shot to death and hidden in the woods nearby. DNA tests have yet to match any missing persons case to these remains, though. In a weird twist to this case, the article mentions that Chicherin usually brings the bones to Paulina's husband, but unfortunately he was detained by ICE earlier this month and then transferred to a concentration camp in Louisiana. I bet you thought there'd be a fun joke in there because it was a story about a cute dog. Sorry, not this time. Georgia State Police have uncovered the motive for the shooting that occurred at the Atlanta CDC last Friday, and it's pretty much what we thought. The shooter was scared of vaccines. Last Friday, 30-year-old Patrick Joseph White fired more than 180 shots with a long gun toward the headquarters of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, according to the Associated Press. Now, during the attack, White shot and killed DeKalb County police officer David Rose before turning the gun on himself and dying by suicide. On Tuesday, state police said they had obtained documents while searching the home where White lived with his parents. Of course, he lived with his parents. In the documents, White had written about making the public aware of his discontent with the vaccine. Now, is it just me? Or have you also noticed that these anti-vaxxers won't put the government's poison in their bodies, but they have no problem taking untested horse antibiotics and drinking that magical monkey piss they heard about from a lady on TikTok? Half our country is legit insane at the moment. So, have a good night's sleep. The New York Post reported new details in the death of 33-year-old New York fashion designer Martha Nolan Oslatera this week. Martha was found unconscious at the upscale Montauk Yacht Club aboard a boat owned by 60-year-old insurance mogul Christopher Dernan on August 5th. She was later pronounced dead. Now, her death is being investigated as a possible accidental drug overdose, but foul play has not been ruled out. Club members reported hearing screams shortly before the woman was found, and they also saw a naked man running around throwing sunscreen at boats, which is a detail that I wanted a little more information about. Over the years, I've come up with 2 rules that have always kept me safe. Never eat meatloaf at the Golden Corral, and never get on a boat owned by a rich man twice my age. It's good lessons. Take it with you. Let's jump over to weird news, shall we? A Chinese man has pled guilty this week and now faces up to 5 years in prison for trying to smuggle 850 eastern box turtles from the U.S. to Hong Kong, according to CBS News. Wai Guan Lin of Brooklyn admitted to wrapping hundreds of box turtles in socks and placing them inside boxes labeled plastic animal toys, which he intended to ship overseas. The turtles have an estimated street value of $1.4 million in Hong Kong, where they are prized pets. By the way, the only thing more expensive than box turtles is turtle wax. And that's understandable since turtles have such very small ears. Is this thing on? Okay. What am I doing with my life? I don't know. Let's go to pop culture. Now streaming on Netflix is a new documentary called Stolen Heist of the Century. I like a good heist story. Here's the write-up. In 2003, elite thieves dubbed the School of Turin pulled off a historic heist at a supposedly unbreakable vault in Antwerp's Diamond District, making off with hundreds of millions in gems that remain missing today. This is on the top of my must-watch list. I'm all about a good heist, and it's a nice break from like disappearances and murders. You know, you can't feel too bad about these, you know, these people that they stole from, hoarding these millions. Anyways, it should be a good documentary. Go check it out. The true crime book of the week this week is an oldie but a newie. Oldie but a goodie. It's old but new. It's like a bridal dress or something. It's a new edition of a book called Too Young to Kill by my buddy M. William Phelps, another mentor of mine. And it's good to see him shooting up the charts again. It's actually a re-release, but here's the write-up. After leaving her troubled home life in Texas, 16-year-old Adrienne Reynolds hoped for a fresh start as part of her adopted father's family in East Moline, Illinois, near the banks of the Mississippi River. Seeking acceptance, she was drawn to a trio of classmates steeped in and obsessed with the Juggalo culture, fans of the rap duo Insane Clown Posse. Though they bonded over their feelings of being outcasts, sporting dark clothing, killer clown makeup, tattoos, and piercings, Adrienne was ill-equipped to deal with the twisted tangles of jealousy and domination in her new social world. After a brutal murder stunned the community and was traced back to the teens, bonds were severed and loyalties tested as the shocking truth finally emerged. In this updated edition of a true crime classic, M. William Phelps revisits the alarming and timely saga of a girl who tried to find herself, the youths who befriended and then betrayed her, and the heartbreaking problems of bullying and teen-on-teen violence that continue to shock and bewilder us. An intimate look at what it's like to be a youth in America. Check it out. Too Young to Kill by M. William Phelps. And that is the show for this week. A little rocky, but I'm glad you stayed with me. I'll be back here next Friday morning. In the meantime, go out and celebrate the final days before your school's back in. And in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, that means we gotta get down. Damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.